Good afternoon. This is the first meeting of the panel on constitutional affairs after the two sessions were held. It's the appointed time. We have a quorum. I call to order the meeting of the panel. The first agenda item is information papers issued since the last meeting. Since the last meeting, we have received a submission referred by the Public Complaints Office, LC paper number CB-2303/2026-01. Agenda item number 2, items for discussion at the next meeting. Members can refer to the list of outstanding items for discussion prepared by the Secretariat, LC paper number CB-2307/2026-01. The next regular meeting will be held at 2:30 p.m. on 20th of April, a Monday. The administration proposes to discuss the two following items. A. Electoral Affairs Commission report on the 2025 Legislative Council General Election, and B. Development of the GBA. This is closely related to the two sessions which were recently held. If members have no comments, we will discuss the two items. Moving to the third agenda item, report on the work of the Equal Opportunities Commission in 2025. Members who wish to speak, please press the request to speak button. I will also ask representatives of the Equal Opportunities Commission and the administration to come inside the conference room.
Oh.
Right. Welcome, representatives from the Equal Opportunities Commission and the Constitutional and Mainland Affairs Bureau. Members can refer to the paper provided by the Equal Opportunities Commission, LC paper number CB-2307/2026-02, and the background brief prepared by the Legislative Secretariat (03). I will now ask Ms. Linda Lam, Chairperson of the Equal Opportunities Commission, to brief members on the paper. I believe she'll give a PowerPoint presentation. Chairman, members will report on the work of the Equal Opportunities Commission in 2025 and its key work focuses for 2026, the details of which are set out in the paper. I will now highlight some salient points. In terms of enforcement, in 2025, we have dealt with 10,062 inquiries, and that would include 1,302 complaint cases, half of which are related to the Disability Discrimination Ordinance, and there are also 36.5% related to the SDO. The trends and patterns of complaints are similar to previous years. And with the complaints dealt with by the EOC, 70% of them are related to employment. The EOC would also try to do conciliation. In 2025, there were 152 such cases, 135 of which reached a settlement. The success rate is 89%. Complainants obtained over $8.58 million in monetary payment through conciliation. For the cases that do not have a settlement reached, they can receive legal assistance from the EOC. And in total, last year, EOC received and handled 11 applications, 6 of which were granted legal assistance. The EOC also helped 2 cases with the initiation of legal proceedings. We want to help the applicants, but also enhance public awareness. Apart from enforcing legislation in 2025, the EOC adopted a multi-pronged approach in policy advocacy, training, and research to enhance public awareness on the 4 pieces of legislation and to really strengthen the values of diversity and equal opportunities in society. In promoting inclusiveness in 2025, we have launched the 2nd edition of the Universal Design Award Scheme. We have included 2 new categories for public education, tertiary education institutions, as well as housing estates, to encourage wider use of universal design. In 2025, we also worked with Ms. Hyun K, a bocce player, to have some videos filmed to enhance public awareness on universal design. We also made good use of social media. We use the new channels such as Instagram Reels to tell youngsters and the general public about the importance of inclusiveness and accessibility. The Reels have attracted hits of 690,000 and over 9,000 interactions. The EOC also launched different guidelines to provide support for different groups with needs. Last July, the EOC launched the guidelines for support for employees with mental health conditions at work to promote an inclusive workplace. We also believe there should be equal opportunities for the use of facilities and social participation. In last October, we have launched another guide about disability rights and services, as well as access to facilities. We have also provided recommendations to operators on the provision of facilities. We have another important work of the Equal Opportunity Commission being through the Anti-Sexual Harassment Unit to promote anti-sexual harassment values. The unit in 2025 continue to provide training to tertiary institutions and primary and secondary schools so that we have zero tolerance for sexual harassment in campuses. There are also some training courses for tertiary students so that they can undertake some online training. The unit also works with stakeholders in different sectors to promote anti-sexual harassment values as well as to create a favorable workplace for all. In July of last year, we have launched an initiative where we have a clips competition to promote the message of having zero tolerance for sexual harassment. The EOC will continue to launch different activities in 2026 to make sure we strengthen the culture of having zero tolerance against sexual harassment in the community. On promoting racial inclusiveness, in the past year, we have continued to remove restrictions for non-Chinese groups in obtaining work and having fair treatment in schools. We have encouraged local campuses, local schools to teach students values of racial inclusiveness and diversity. We have also provided training to teachers. We have also set up a cross-sectoral resource network to help non-Chinese students in their learning and life planning. On employment, we We'll actively invite those who have signed the Racial Diversity and Inclusion Charter to provide internship opportunities for non-Chinese tertiary students, as well as appropriate employment opportunities for non-Chinese. We actually worked with the DAB Ethnic Minorities Committee to hold a job fair. Lastly, we co-hosted the job fair, and we invited those who signed a charter to provide over 180 employment opportunities. In November of last year, we also held an award ceremony to award companies who have worked hard in promoting fairness in recruitment as well as social community participation. We will continue to work with different ethnic and religious groups, and we will also provide training to enhance cultural sensitivity and related legislation to create a racially diverse and friendly community. We also want to make sure there are equal opportunities for those who have family commitments and promote family-friendly workplaces. In August of last year, we announced a study publishing findings from the perspectives of HR personnel and in work personnel on family-friendly employment practices. We want to make sure employees can really deal with their family commitments after work. In 2026, we will launch another study on the problems faced by carers of patients with mental health conditions. Youngsters are future pillars of society. We also need to tell them more about the values of equal opportunities and diversity and inclusiveness. We have prepared videos and online training materials for primary students to promote empathy and respect. Between February and May last year, we held the first debate competition on equal opportunities so that secondary school students have a deeper understanding of issues relating to equal opportunities. We also had the 4th edition of Youth Ambassador Scheme last year and selected 55 tertiary students, and they took part in different experiential activities to find out more about the needs of different groups in society. This can help them convey the message of equal opportunities to their peers. We have also been working with mainland stakeholders to promote exchanges. In October and December of last year, we held the Forum on Disability Services to promote the development of disabled services. We will soon sign an MOU with the Guangdong Disabled Persons Federation to enhance exchanges, promote the use of universal design, and a barrier-free environment. Members, May of this year is the 30th anniversary of the EOC. We will have a series of public education activities to encourage all sectors of the community to take part in creating a more caring and inclusive society so that there are equal opportunities for all. That's it for my presentation. We welcome questions and comments from members. Thank you, Ms. Linda Lam. I will now ask members to ask questions and give comments. I will assign a 3-minute time limit, seeing the number of speakers, the ones who have pressed the request to speak button. I read out the order in which members are going to speak. Professor Chen Wing-Kong, Dr. Thomas So, Mr. Eric Yim, Mr. Chu Lap Wei, Professor Alex Fan, Mr. Robert Lee, Ms. Jenny Man, Mr. Andrew Yao, Mr. Wu Yingpeng, Mr. Tommy Chung, and myself. I will now ask Professor Chen to speak.
Thank you. I want to follow up on a few points in the work report from the EOC. I'm looking at Annex 2. In 2025, the EOC dealt with 1,224 cases. Those cases involved decisions against investigations or cases where an investigation was discontinued. So there were frivolous complaints or cases where the victim refused to take part in the investigation, and that was the basis for this discontinuation decision. But do we know how satisfied those complainants were about the investigation? Once a decision was made, have we explained the reasons to the complainants so that the complainants saw why the EOC did what it did? And that's how we can raise awareness in efforts against discrimination. In recent years, we have brought in talent through a number of admission schemes. So my question is, have we received complaints about alleged discrimination against the incoming talent? Does the EOC have measures in place to protect the incoming talent and workers from discrimination in an effort to foster social harmony? Ms. Linda Lam, thank you. Once we receive a complaint, we talk to the complainant to obtain further details. We decide whether conciliation is appropriate. If the complainant is willing, then we will proceed with conciliation. So that's what we do before an investigation. If the conciliation works, then we won't have to proceed with the investigation. But if a party in the investigation refuses conciliation, and if the facts warrant so, we will proceed with an investigation. The complainant may change their mind. They may not want to proceed with the investigation, or during the investigation, new circumstances emerge. The complainant does not wish to continue, or the fact of the complaint may fall outside the scope of the 4 ordinances against discrimination. We will remain in touch with the complainant in that case. There's a timeline for us to get back to the complainant, so we have to get back to the complainant at a certain time or by a certain time after receiving the complaint. So we follow this timeline. After an investigation, if we decide that we cannot continue the investigation, or if we decide the facts do not amount to discrimination, we do offer a detailed explanation to the complainant. There was a second question. Whether there were complaints coming from imported workers. We do not have such a category in our statistics. Most complaints had to do with employment. On imported workers and the complaints from them, we do not have such a subcategory tallying complaints from them. But after the meeting today, I can dig into the figures and provide the information later on. Dr. Thomas So. I start by thanking the Equal Opportunities Commission, especially Ms. Linda Lam, for the huge amount of work done last year, especially the work on combating sexual harassment. I have some questions about ethnic minorities. First, there's a point in the report this has to do with Chinese language education and life planning for non-Chinese speaking students. There were 2 recommendations. There's a working group under the EOC. In August 2024, there was an enhanced version of the submission on Chinese language education and life planning for NCS. on support for Chinese language learning, learning of Chinese language exams, and also life planning. That submission contained great ideas on this front. So my question is, has this submission reached the government? If so, has there been response and follow-up actions from this submission? My second question is paragraph 40 in the report of the EOC. Over the past year, the EOC met with different ethnic groups and religious groups, a total of 186 meetings. That's how the EOC found out about the needs of these groups. And so, are there internal records on the EOC side about their needs, and have actions been taken to follow up on such needs? Thank you. I thank Dr. So for his recognition of our effort. For ethnic minorities, they have struggled with Chinese language learning, and such struggles may affect their pursuit of further studies and landing a job. They will be held back massively if they struggle with the Chinese language, so we keep enhancing our work on this front. In 2024, during the consultation for the public policy address, we submitted our proposal. We also met with the Education Bureau to discuss such matters. Over the years, we worked extensively with the EDB. We also worked together over students with special educational needs. We came up with many recommendations. The EDB adopted our recommendations progressively over time based on the circumstances. For the 2024 recommendations, I met with the Secretary for Education a few months ago. I raised the matter with her. We had a productive exchange. At that meeting, I mentioned creating a platform to help members of ethnic minorities to learn Chinese language and find a job. I'm trying to look up the specific paragraph in the submission, so bear with me. It's paragraph 49 in the report. In 2026, we will launch a platform. It's called a Racial Inclusion Partnership Platform. Many NGOs in Hong Kong and the HKSAR government have come up with tons of information and resources for ethnic minorities to learn Chinese. We will put resources on this platform so that people can access those resources. We told the EDB about our idea about creating this platform, and that has the support of the Secretary for Education. She would join our events and offer words of encouragement. The EDB will also let us know if they have support measures that will go hand in hand with the platform. So this platform will be a step forward to help members of EMs to learn Chinese and improve their Chinese. The second part of the answer is about life planning. Members of ethnic minorities do well in different professional fields such as legal services. On that platform, we want to identify distinguished members to serve as role models so that they can tell other members of the ethnic minorities about getting on in their professional careers. And the EDB is also willing to give us support if they support our efforts on this front. What about paragraph 40? Are there records, are there minutes from those meetings? Any follow-up actions taken? He refers to the meetings with members of ethnic minorities. Indeed, we take follow-up actions after meetings. We meet to find out about their needs, and then we take follow-up actions. some members of ethnic minorities struggle with applying to schools. They may run into discrimination because of the turban they're wearing. The chairperson of the EOC writes to schools from time to time. We urge schools to treat applicants fairly. Schools should not turn students away simply because they do not speak Chinese. And they should not be discriminated based on their headwear. Once we meet with the ethnic minorities, we note their views and then we do internal deliberations about what to do. Writing to schools is one option we take. We keep following up on such matters. We do have internal records and we do take follow-up actions. Thank you. Members, please be mindful of the time limit. We want to let more members to speak in the queue. Before we come to the next member, I will draw the line here. So 11 members in total will speak. Next, Mr. Eric Yim. Thank you. I'm looking at paragraphs 8 and 9 in the EOC's report. It's about conciliation. Complainants may worry about the hassle involved and the privacy issue, so they do not wish to continue with the investigation. So the EOC is trying to adopt conciliation when there is no law breaking involved. But in cases when there is a criminal offense, even if the complainant decides not to pursue the matter further, shouldn't the EOC insist on investigating the matter? As we can see from the case in paragraph 11, that secondary student was sexually harassed by a male classmate from Form 2 to Form 4. Proceedings were brought and then there was an out-of-court settlement. If the law was broken, did the EOC consider referring the case to the police for a criminal investigation? Ms. Linda Lam. I thank Mr. Yim for his questions. When people come to us with a complaint and we see the law was broken, we proceed with an investigation. If the complainant prefers conciliation, then we are legally obliged to try to foster a settlement. So whether the action is against the law plays no part in our decision to pursue conciliation. There will be an investigation if the action violates any of those 4 ordinances. On the case in paragraph 11, that case involved sexual harassment at a secondary school. We conducted an investigation. The complainant and the person being complained against failed to reach settlement during investigation, so the complainant came to us and applied for legal assistance, and we believe assistance was warranted. This case involved bullying at a secondary school. We did grant legal assistance, so the proceedings were brought, but during those proceedings, the parties agreed on an out-of-court settlement. This was not a case where the EOC decided not to proceed with the investigation. We did grant legal assistance to the complainant. The parties preferred an out-of-court settlement as a way to resolve the dispute. That's why the proceedings did not go ahead. Mr. Chu Lapwai. I'm looking at paragraph 7, family status discrimination. Those cases made up only 3.6% of all cases, way below other kinds of discrimination. A low figure is welcome news, but from what I've heard from people don't quite get what it means by family status discrimination. Maybe people did not come forward with complaints because they were not aware that such discrimination took place. I don't see much discussion about family status discrimination in the report. So will there be more publicity and education on family status education?
Ms. Linda Lam. Thank you, member. We saw over many years the trend of complaints. We do not have many complaints under the FSDO, and in 2021 we did a particular study. We noted the low complaint figures, which is why we had regular publicity and educational activities to focus on family status related discrimination. And we have, as I said earlier, a study that is done from the perspective of HR, management personnel, and on-job personnel. It's about those who have work, but they also have to care for someone in their family. They are basically working parents. They face much pressure, and what kind of family-friendly employment practices they want from their companies. The members' concern is very much valid. We do have low complaint figures, but this is what we have observed all along. We will continue to enhance our work in this regard, however. Thank you. Professor Alex Fan. Chair, in the 2025 report of the EOC, they talked much about what they're going to do in this coming year. They will focus on ethnic minorities, the digital divide, as well as care for those with mental health conditions. I appreciate that. But then, with the prevalence of AI in recruitment, there is a risk of discrimination. For example, employers may use AI as a filtering tool for age and other areas or other factors. And we have seen that happen in other parts of the world. The Digital Policy Office also announced an application guide for AI technology. They pointed out that model bias needs to be taken into account. I don't see the report of the EOC touching on this topic, which I think is very important. So I want to ask first if the EOC has assessed under the 4 pieces of legislation for the burden of proof as well as the threshold of legal assistance, we can effectively respond to discrimination arising from algorithm use that is not exactly easy to detect. I also have another question. Will the EOC include part of their work in 2026 how to mitigate risks brought about by AI? Thank you, Professor Fan, for your questions. With rapid development of technology and the prevalence of AI, we definitely have a different landscape, but then the EOC has all along kept in close watch the development of the situation, and indeed there may be some bias that is not predisposed, and we need to also think about how we can make use of AI to help the underprivileged groups. We actually submitted for the government's policy address consultation how to eliminate bias that is caused by the algorithms of AI. And we are very glad that after the Digital Policy Office in 2025 launched the application guide for AI technology, we also made relevant recommendations in that regard. In the past year, we also did a study about ethnic minorities receiving services through digital technology. We will announce the findings this year. In the report, we specifically talked about, with regard to the needs of ethnic minorities, we have some recommendations for the design of digital websites. which relate to including the use of AI and to remove barriers for ethnic minorities in using relevant platforms. We also suggest operators to really consult different ethnic religious groups. We will have more details in the report. AI is a neutral technology, and with our submission relating to the policy address consultation, we hope the government and stakeholders can make good use of AI to help underprivileged groups. For example, make use of speech recognition system, a subtitling system, as well as speech to text mechanism. This can help those with visual or hearing impairment to communicate with others, appreciate activities, improving their quality of life, and help them find work. We need to make good use of AI, and we think the key is social education. In the coming year, we will continue to conduct public education activities to remind stakeholders to make good use of AI to provide convenience to underprivileged groups to avoid discrimination. Thank you, Mr. Robert Lee. Thank you, Chair. I would like to thank the EOC representative for giving a report and a presentation on their work in 2025 and their work foci in 2026. I have some questions. During the presentation and in the paper, they talked about how in 2025 they had 10,062 inquiries, 1,302 complaints, and 152 of which had conciliation. 135 among those cases reached a settlement, and complainants obtained over $8.58 million in monetary payment through conciliation. We do not have a breakdown. Do we have the highest figure, the lowest figure, and the median figure? If you have such data, can you provide such to members for members' reference? Do we also have something that is non-pecuniary in compensation through conciliation? We have many cases that are related to employment, and if one was terminated, but then if we can have this changed to a resignation or some kind of apology can be provided, have we had these other solutions in other cases? You also have the service pledge. You said you would deal with 75% of cases within 6 months. You did go past this in 2025. You can deal with cases within 6 months for 92% of the cases, but then you have some cases spanning a few years. So I want to ask how long it can be at most. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Lam. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Robert Lee, for your questions. With the monetary payment, it really is dependent on the circumstances of the cases. If you want the median, I can provide some anonymous data for members' reference, but I would say this, the median is not exactly accurate because, say, for a senior administrative personnel with a company that was subject to discrimination, and for an employee that is relatively junior, they will get a significantly different figure in compensation. I can provide such figure, but it may not be very useful. We also have other solutions such as an apology. For example, when a disabled person was refused entry to a restaurant. And in fact, the restaurant had a ramp, but there was some miscommunication with the employee, so the disabled person could not get into the restaurant. So in future, they actually told employees about the removable ramps, and they would also make sure potential patrons know this, so as to prevent such mistreatment. Sometimes complainants just want an apology. They are not making a complaint simply wanting money. They would just ask the relevant companies or organizations to make a donation. I can give some examples after the meeting for members' reference. For the cases that we can deal with within 6 months, there are 92% of such cases. For those that take longer, it would sometimes be the cases that involve pregnant employees, because they have to give birth to their children. We cannot really force the complainant to provide information to us right away. Some cases involve litigation. Those may take longer as well. Some members asked earlier why we didn't involve the police. We have some cases involving indecent assault along with sexual harassment. So we would have to wait until the criminal proceedings are over before we handle complaints relating to sexual harassment. This will prolong the handling process of cases. We have also discrimination complaints where we have complainants lodging a claim at the labor tribunal, so we have to wait until the process is over as well before we can start our process. We can provide relevant data after the meeting. Thank you, Ms. Jenny Mann. Thank you, Chair. I have 2 questions. In paragraph 28, it talked about how the EOC held seminar and workshop for the catering industry. I believe it was related to the case where a female working at a Korean restaurant who was given really insulting nicknames by her supervisor. And I want to ask, after the EOC had received the complaint, what the progress of the handling of the case is right now, and has the EOC have targeted treatment for employment sexual harassment, especially collective and sustainable harassment, and has the EOC regularly collected public opinion on different public impression of the handling of EOC, such as taking a long time to deal with cases, because this will impede fairness. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Jenny Mann, for your questions. Indeed, the case in paragraph 28 relates to a complaint in a Korean restaurant. There was someone complaining on social media about sexual harassment. We think the circumstances are serious, which is why we have held a series of seminars for the F&B industry to enhance awareness and how to prevent sexual harassment. That was what we did then. And about a threshold being high, we didn't understand some complainants thought that, but please understand, we are a neutral body conducting investigations and handling complaints. We are an independent body. We need complainants to provide information to us in order to conduct investigations. As we are independent, not only are we working for complainants, we also need to make sure we show concern to those who are complained against. They have the right to know the accusations made against them. So we need complainants to provide information to really launch and conduct investigations. We have a stringent mechanism for complaint handling. We tell complainants and those who have received complaints that we are neutral. We need them to provide information. We need complainants to provide information, and then we will seek replies from those who are complained against. And depending on the party's wishes, this may take some time. We have to be fair to everyone to really find out about the facts. We do have some key milestones in our mechanism, how long we have to give a reply to the complainant after we have obtained information, and we will handle complaints accordingly. Unless there are strenuous circumstances such as illness, we will not delay any complaint handling. Thank you, Mr. Andrew Yao.
I acknowledge the work of the EOC as shown in its 2025 report. We want to become a hub for international talent, so the work done by the EOC is very important. I'm looking at paragraph 24. We received roughly 600 inquiries about sexual harassment last year. More than half came from prospective complainants. A quarter of those came from people in human resources. So can Ms. Linda Lam tell us about changes in the trends of sexual harassment complaints in the workplace? What do you do about anonymous complaints? And then I'm looking at paragraph 47. In 2026, there will be an anti-sexual harassment community partner program. Will the EOC work with the Labor Department and the business community on something like a good employer charter or some sort of recognition for good employers? Ms. Lam. Paragraph 24 mentions 596 inquiries received. We set up the hotline to encourage people to come to us with questions. People are free to disclose their names, and then we record the names, we answer questions. If people decide to withhold their names, we respect those decisions. We answer their questions all the same. This hotline is there to encourage people to come forward to tell us about their experience. They can ask questions to find out whether what they encountered was sexual harassment. This hotline is about asking questions. When people want to file a complaint, we encourage them to call our complaint hotline. At that stage, people will have to give us their names. We'll have to talk to the person being complained against, because that person also needs to know who is filing the complaint. So at the inquiry stage, people can stay anonymous. They can ask questions about their experience. Certain inquiries came from prospective complainants. They asked questions and then they decided whether to lodge a formal complaint. Questions also came from people in human resources. Those people called us with questions about what companies could do to prevent sexual harassment. So that's what we have seen. On the community partner scheme, so this scheme will be launched soon. We will invite companies to nominate employees. Those employees will undergo training by us. We will tell them what sexual harassment is and how they can prevent workplace harassment. Once we empower these employees, they can promote the message in their own organizations. If this scheme works well, at the end of next year, we will come up with an award scheme to recognize the work of outstanding community partners. The member asked about working with the Labor Department. I will give thought to this idea going forward. Thank you. Mr. Wu Yingpeng. Thank you, Chairman. My question for Ms. Linda Lam is protection for the rights of women. During the two sessions this year, a hot topic was how to protect the rights of women. From the EOC's report, we can see the EOC did a lot of work on protecting women's rights. I want to acknowledge the EOC's work. Paragraph 45 mentions work on ethnic minorities, support for carers of persons in mental recovery. Those areas are key focuses for 2026. Given the latest developments in socioeconomic development and technology, will we double down on efforts to eliminate discrimination against women? Ms. Linda Lam. Sorry, I didn't catch the last bit of the question. Eliminating all forms of discrimination against women. This comes from the United Nations document. Any work, any plan on eliminating discrimination against women? Ms. Linda Lam. The Sex Discrimination Ordinance is about eliminating discrimination on the basis of sex. We do not distinguish between discrimination against men or women. We do not give anyone less favorable treatment on the basis of their sex. So that implements the Convention on Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. No one should be discriminated against on the basis of their sex. So that means no women should be discriminated against for being women. And we do not tolerate discrimination against breastfeeding women. No women should be discriminated against for pregnancy. All those steps implement the convention. The key clauses from that convention are already implemented under the Sex Discrimination Ordinance. Efforts against sexual harassment is also part of the SDO, and this is something we're working on. We can look at the complaint figures. Under the SDO, 2/3 of the complaints have to do with sexual harassment. We have to keep working on this. In 2023, we released a report on breastfeeding in public places. That's to protect breastfeeding mothers. Mr. Tommy Chong. I acknowledge the EOC's Work Report 2025. I have some questions. On support for persons in mental recovery, we have been stepping up support. But there's room for improvement in the support for their carers. Based on the DDO, carers of persons with mental conditions should be protected. There were 667 complaints about the disability discrimination ordinance. How many of such complaints had to do with carers? Now I'm looking at paragraph 45B. There will be a study on effective policies and the measures to support caregivers of persons with mental illness. Do we have a timeline? When will the study start? When will that end? How will the study proceed? So a question about the timeline. Ms. Linda Lam. Thank you. Over the past 5 years, there were roughly 300 cases involving discrimination against persons with mental conditions. But on the carers of these persons, I do not have the figures readily at hand, but I can provide the details after the meeting. We all care about mental conditions. Mental well-being is top of mind for people. Carers of persons with mental conditions also deserve our attention. So, last year, we started this study on effective policies and measures to support such caregivers. and we will recommend measures to support such carers. So that study is going on. We engaged an external consultancy to help us with this study. So the study is underway. Early this year, at the end of this year or early next year, we should be able to release the study. Since this study is going on, we stay in touch with the consultant. What we can say now is that we expect the findings to come out maybe late this year or early next year. The last member to speak for this item. I acknowledge the work report of the EOC. We have just concluded the 2 sessions. Integrating international development is an area where the EOC did much work, deepening exchanges, working with the Greater Bay Area on rights of disabled persons and cooperation agreements. We have a memorandum of understanding on cooperation with the Guangdong province. Do we have concrete goals and indicators on what we expect to achieve in terms of our collaboration? We can take measures on our side, and we can also support development on the mainland. So can you tell us more? We fully agree. Economic collaboration aside, we can also cooperate on social matters with the mainland. Seniors and persons with disabilities move to the mainland and settle there. That's why we work closely with the Federation of Disabled Persons in Guangdong. Last year, we hosted the 4th GBA Exchange Forum on Synergistic Promotion of Disability Rights and Services. This year, we will hold the 5th edition of this Exchange Forum. In the middle of this year, we will sign a memorandum of understanding on cooperation with this federation. In May, we will sign that memorandum on the Disabled Persons Day. That MOU will help us get in touch with the Guangdong Federation on a regular basis. We will cover accessibility. We want to find ways to make it easier for persons with disabilities to navigate cities, whether it's about Hong Kong people going to the mainland or the other way around. So that concludes this item. Thank you. We move on to the next item, item 4, the 2026 voter registration campaign. Members who wish to speak, please press the Request to Speak button. We now welcome Acting Secretary for Constitutional and Mainland Affairs and his team to join us. Welcome. We now invite Mr. Clement Wu, the Acting Secretary, to take us through the government's paper. Thank you, Chairman. We're here today to brief members on the 2026 voter registration campaign. Every year, the government organizes publicity events on voter registration. The highlights include encouraging eligible persons to sign up as voters. We will also remind people to submit their new registration and also change their particular applications. The deadline falls on the 2nd of June. So for this year, the highlights of our VR exercise is as follows. this year is neither an election year for the electrical nor is it an election year for the district councils. So the scale of the exercise this year will be similar to that of non-election years in the past. So there will be publicity and education campaigns. We will remind people to submit applications or change of particulars, and we will also conduct targeted publicity. There were counters at registration of persons' offices, so we will continue that practice so that we promote voter registration among members of the public who have received their permanent identity card. We will regularize this practice. We also look at the actual circumstances. The registration and electoral office is considering the option for an administrator of oath to proceed with the work for people who cannot produce address proof. People are now able to submit their new registration or change of particular applications via IM Smart, which is a secure and easy option, and we will keep promoting this option. I now invite the principal electoral officer from the REO, who will tell us about the other details about the VR registration this year.
Thank you, Acting Secretary. Chairman, members, the paper provided to members is to brief members on the publicity plan and main features of the 2026 voter registration campaign. As the Acting Secretary said, this is not an election year, so what we have in scale is in line with what we had before for non-election years. We would focus on encouraging those who are not registered as electors to register as electors. We will also remind registered electors to update their personal particulars, especially those who have moved to other places. We will issue a letter to electors if we have any inquiries. The deadline is 2nd of June. If they do not submit applications or submit relevant information before 2nd of June, the latest information may not be reflected in the register published on or before 25th of September. And we will also issue the provisional register on or before 1st of August this year. Members of the public may make inquiries or objections, and an adjudication decision will be made thereafter. Apart from encouraging those who are eligible to register as electors and reminding electors to update their information, we also encourage electors and general public to go to IM Smart or go to the online voter information inquiry system to check such information, or they can call a hotline. We will also remind members of the public that they need to provide address proof when they make a new registration application or an application to update personal particulars. We encourage members of the public to make use of different services I mentioned earlier for relevant actions. We have 2 phases in the voter registration campaign this year. We will encourage eligible citizens to register as electors, and we will remind electors to update the information with the REO. We will issue letters to certain electors when we have inquiries. We ask them to provide a reply as soon as possible. And as I said earlier, address proof would have to be provided for new registration applications and applications to update personal particulars. And up to 25th of August, the REO will remind members to make use of IM Smart or the online voter information inquiry system to check their information. The REO will also issue letters to electors who are on the omission lists to reply to confirm that their elector status should be retained. and we have the relevant work details set out in the paper. Basically, we have a three-pronged approach. We will make use of traditional channels such as the APIs to enhance public awareness. We will also display ads and posters in different places as well as public transport. We will also make use of online channels and mobile apps to have digital ads to strengthen promotion. We will also adopt a targeted approach to get in touch with those who are eligible for register as electors. We will also remind electors who have just moved houses to update their information. We will continue to set up booths at the registration of persons offices as well as the right of abode section of the immigration department to encourage and assist members of the public to register as electors, especially, for example, persons who have recently reached the age of 18 or persons who have just attained permanent residency. For those who cannot provide immediately their address proof, we have a pilot arrangement for the deployment of Commissioner for Oaths to administer statutory declaration. We will also specifically promote to youngsters a message to register as electors. We will have publicity activities with the target group being youngsters. We will work with the Housing Department and Housing Society to verify relevant information, to identify those who have just moved into public housing estates and help them update their residential address information. We will continue to work with different departments to get in touch with new immigrants so that when they obtain permanent residency, they will register as electors. We also encourage electors to make use of more convenience means such as I'm Smart to update information such as their mobile phone number and address. That's it for my presentation. We welcome members' questions on the paper. Thank you, Chair. Thank you. We have 10 members who have pressed the request to speak button. I will assign a 3-minute time limit. I will read out the order in which members are going to speak. Professor Alex Fan, Mr. Holden Chow, Mr. Andrew Fan, Ms. Jenny Man, Mr. Andrew Yao, Mr. Lee Chen Ko, Mr. Wu Yingping, Mr. Robert Lee, Mr. Eric Yam, and Mr. Chen Yong, myself. Professor Alex Fan. Thank you, Chair. I would also like to thank the administration for presenting the paper. According to paragraph 13b, the REO would try to identify electors who have newly moved into public housing estates by working with the Housing Department and Hong Kong Housing Society. I believe that will provide convenience to citizens. It can also reduce the chance of electors forgetting to update their information after moving. I appreciate this. I think it also demonstrates a direction we can take. We can really expand this data sharing mechanism that provides convenience to the people to other areas. Right now, this mechanism mainly benefits public housing estate residents because public housing estates have a single database. But we have people who are not moving to public housing estates as well, and they have to make a declaration with different government departments. It can be really cumbersome. How can we provide more convenience to the public? Say when citizens replace their ID cards or when they renew their licenses with transport department or if they change their addresses with water supplies department and utilities companies. The departmental systems would already have registered citizens' new address information. If we can share such data with other departments, it can really reduce the burden on citizens on making repeated declarations. So can we have an simple authorization option so that citizens can consent to having this information updated on other government-related systems as well. For example, for voter registration to enhance efficiency. Thank you. Mr. Wu, thank you. It is really worth exploring how we can provide more convenience in voter registration. However, in electoral legislation, there is a particular requirement for the address being a principal residential address or the only residential address. And we require electors to have geographical affiliation for a geographical constituency. As the member said, for housing departments and housing department and housing society, we can verify this being the address being a principal residential address. But then we have other government departmental services that do not have such requirement for addresses. They may not even have an address at all. So when we explore this suggestion, we need to make sure we have appropriate information for our purpose. With that said, we will continue to explore different options while complying with the law. We can provide more convenience in voter registration with the principal residential address or the only residential address. I guess we can determine priorities. We need to make sure we can match the information before we go on with this. Mr. Holden Chow, thank you. I want to focus in particular on encouraging youngsters to register as voters. And in paragraph 12 of the paper, it shows the REO has worked well with tertiary institutions as well as younger students. I have a suggestion just for the reference of the administration. If we have youngsters register as voters, it is good. Say if they register at universities, in future they can exercise their right to vote at elections. This is a part of civic responsibility, and this is how we can start instilling such awareness. I want to ask if the administration can enhance collaboration with tertiary institutions. For example, you can set up counters or you can set up booths at some school events. We have already those in civic society doing this, but I think with your participation, you'll be able to collect data on voter registration at tertiary institutions from the tertiary institutions, and then you can make such information available to the public in a systematic manner. We do not necessarily need high figures. It's just about enhancing awareness in society about voter registration in the younger generation, and in turn that will create favorable conditions and have more people participate in the initiative. Before, we did not really have the circumstances favorable to doing this, but I think now is the right time to start doing this. And as said, the administration is touching more importance on youth voter registration, so I think we can really focus on this in publicity. Thank you. Mr. Wu, thank you, Mr. Chow, for your suggestion. We really attach great importance to having youngsters take part in voting. As Mr. Chow said, we start publicity in secondary schools, and we have held 45 seminars in the past year. We've reached 8,700 students to tell them about the improved electoral system. And Mr. Chow also mentioned tertiary institutions for March and April, where the school events were held, and August and September when the school year starts, we have proactively reached out to youngsters. And in fact, we had youngsters reach out to youngsters. We had last year youngsters for the legislative election, working with some youth groups for publicity work. It can really encourage citizens to vote. And we have also made use of online channels, I Am Smart, and other social media platforms placing ads. So we also have some info kits for people to repost. We also have YouTube videos to tell people about how they can make use of I Am Smart to obtain their voter information. We will definitely have a work focus on youngsters. The REO, when they did their work at the immigration department section, they saw youngsters having an issue. They want to make a registration, but then they do not have an address proof. So, which is why we're piloting this arrangement to have commissioners for oaths to help youngsters make statutory declarations. And they may have just declared that that is their address. We will follow up on this to verify such information. They do not really have utilities bills to prove the address, but we will try to help them with that so as to provide more convenience in registration.
議員。
Mr. Andrew Fan. Thank you. I'm looking at paragraph 6. It says that if there is evidence showing that the registered address of a particular elector is no longer his or her principal residential address, the REO will conduct a statutory inquiry. Now, here are my questions. How do you find such evidence? And I also heard about taking an oath. Everyone should only have one principal address. We heard about utilities bills, demand notes from the Inland Revenue Department, and also fixed penalty notices from the police. We lack a single system linking everything. At the 2 sessions, we discussed the AI Plus initiative. The chief executive also said we would come up with our first 5-year plan. So we will consider putting this in our 5-year plan. AI can help us determine whether an address is bogus. We also talked about taking an oath. In the chaotic days in Hong Kong, there were tons of false information from young people. Of course, AI can help us verify information, but if we allow people to take an oath, will there be risks? Mr. Clement Wu, first, the statutory inquiry. Last year, we had the Legislative Council general election. We sent out many voting reminder cards, and then some of the mail got bounced back saying that the recipient no longer lived there, or there were addresses involving demolished buildings. In such cases, we investigate. So that's how we get the evidence, and that's why we send out inquiry letters. Now, on AI Plus initiative, we will look into ways to improve our work leveraging AI. We have considered the point about taking an oath. We can take steps on the spot to help people register. We do take follow-up actions afterwards. An oath sworn carries legal force, but we rely on more than the oath. We also take follow-up actions to verify what this oath taker tells us. An 18-year-old student also has records with the Education Bureau showing where this person lives. And we can also get someone who lives with the student to sign a document. In any case, the REO verifies the addresses after the oath taking. So taking the oath is only part of the process. Before the next member speaks, I would draw the line here. Ms. Ginny Man. Thank you, Chairman. My question also has to do with the inquiry. How many voters were there last year who did not respond to the inquiry on time and got their registration cancelled, leading to a reduction in the number of voters? Some people could not respond on time because they were not aware of such mail, or it was personal omission. The building where they lived still exists. Will we consider sending second reminders, or do we consider sending them text messages as a reminder? The Bureau kept telling us about using I Am Smart to sign up. We want to encourage voters to vote. We should not expect voters to constantly look things up on their own to check to make sure they're still voters. The Bureau should take a more proactive approach to help these voters. Voters have already registered. They think they have signed up, but they realize only at the polling station that they cannot vote. That would be a shame. Now, for new arrivals in Hong Kong and people who turn 18, we want to make it easier for them to register as voters. For these people, will the Bureau consider working with the Immigration Department? So on the form where people apply for their permanent resident identity card, will we consider adding a field to the form so that people can apply for their identity card and register for voting in the same form? Of course, oaths will be involved. That may help us to get more people to sign up. We can overcome the red tape under Acting Secretary. The REO can tell us the figures in a moment. I will address the point about inquiry letters. In the years after elections, we get more cases of inquiries because the voting reminder card got bounced back. The mail came back with a note saying the recipient no longer lived at the address. So that's when we start the inquiry letters. We send the inquiry letter by post because that's a legal requirement. So in every VR exercise, we remind people to provide us with their email address and their phone number on top of their residential address. Sending the information by post is a legal requirement, but a phone number and an email address will help us reach out to the voters. The voter needs to be connected to a constituency. That's why we send information to them by post. The voter is supposed to receive the letter. On that envelope, there is also text in red alerting the voter of the importance of the mail. So that's how we remind voters to respond. On the 1st of August, the provisional registers will come out. And people will have to lodge a claim if their names are not part of the provisional registers, and then we will correct the registers. Now, the principal electoral officer will share figures with us. Last year, we removed 68,000 people or so from the register after the statutory inquiry. Mr. Andrew Yao, I acknowledge the work done in relation to the 2026 VR campaign. Mr. Holden Chow made a good point. we should target people turning 18. Do we have figures on recruiting new voters at tertiary institutions? Let's talk to the University Grants Committee. Every university has to meet key performance indicators on national security education and national education. Getting more voters should also be made an indicator. And have we considered setting up mobile registration booths at concert venues and the West Kowloon district? Deepfake is now a thing. Do we have measures to educate the public about scam calls and scam messages from fraudsters posing as the REO or the EAC? Acting Secretary, I thank Mr. Yao for his ideas about KPIs and setting up booths at concert venues. Messages coming from the REO start with the text string REO, so that's one way for people to tell. Now over to the Principal Electoral Officer. We do work with tertiary institutions. We have received more than 300 applications, so that was last year. We also address inquiries from the public. We gave out leaflets. We dealt with 400 or so inquiries last year in relation to tertiary institutions. Over to Mr. Li Shenkar. I said this many years ago about voter registration. It's a life decision. People sign after weighing different factors. We have to make this process easy. People expect signing up as a user-friendly process. In the past, signing up as a voter required filling in the Chinese character code for each Chinese character in a person's name. Can we simplify voter registration as a step that involves scanning a code or using the near-field communication technology? We can put forms in different places. When people sign up for public rental housing or when people pick up their keys, can we put forms there? And when people redeem their points at shopping malls, can we offer single portal access to voter registration? Can we give people extra loyalty points for registering as voters? Maybe we can explore that. We give out small gifts to people as part of voter registration. So can we take steps to make signing up easier for people? Now, we also should make voting easier. People have to go to designated polling stations. But technology has moved on. Can we give people the freedom to choose one of a number of polling stations when polling day comes? This will offer a stronger incentive for people to become voters. So these are points for the government to consider. So can we make signing up and voting easier? Acting Secretary, thank you. I agree with Mr. Li. We have to make the process user-friendly for people to register as voters. The member brought up ways to simplify the process, and we will consider that. On voting, we thought about voting. At the polling station, if we allow people from different constituencies to vote at the same polling station, then we will end up with a situation. At popular polling stations near transport interchanges, those polling stations will be popular. We will have to consider the venue. Will the venue be big enough? Long queues may form at those venues. These are operational factors we have to take into account. We will continue to consider these factors. We want to make voter registration easier, but we will also have to consider ways to make voting easier.
Mr. Robert Lee, thank you. Chair, I would first like to thank the administration representatives for giving a presentation on the 2026 voter registration campaign. I have several follow-up questions. After they have registered as electors, we do want citizens to vote, and we have some places in the world that would have mandatory voting. And with controversial issues, they have done referendums, and they can still have a high voting rate as a result. But then I guess what we can do is to have more people register as electors. We have many migrants, talents admitted through the different talent admission schemes. We have many people coming to Hong Kong. Have we been tracking data on whether these new migrants have registered as electors? Because it can really show whether they have a sense of belonging in this city. I think we should also provide greater convenience to citizens. We can have more channels for them to register, for example, when they're renewing their licenses or when they are obtaining services, especially for elderly persons or those who have mobility difficulties. We also want to make sure we do more for the younger generation. Of course, they have to be of age to be eligible. But then can we have something early on telling them through, say, some cartoon videos about how registration and voting work? And after that, when they're of age, they are motivated to register and they know how to register and vote. Thank you. Mr. Wu, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Member, for the suggestion. For the younger group, say secondary students, or for the general public, we have some voter registration activities. For example, the info center under the REO is open to school visits, and we have received delegations before. We have staff members of the center having some interactive activities with students. We also have some talks for participants, especially students, to know more about the improved electoral system of Hong Kong and to encourage them to register as voters. We have close to 7,000 participants last year. And as I said earlier, this school year we will have 45 talks to call for those who are of age to register as voters. And as I said earlier, we will regularize the arrangements of having registration counters at the immigration department premises. We are also piloting an arrangement where we would deploy commissioner for oaths to administer statutory declarations. The different options mentioned by Mr. Lee will also consider them. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Eric Yim. And the last legislative term, I already raised a concern. The statutory deadline for voter registration is 2nd of June. The register won't be published until 25th of September. There are 4 months in between. Can we shorten that gap? For example, we can push back the statutory deadline to sometime in July, say the end of July. So between 2nd of June and the end of July, if we can have people register as electors, even for election years, I believe there will be more who will register as electors. The administration explained then more time was needed and manpower was also needed for registration work. But now, I think with the use of AI, we can perhaps shorten that time gap in between. Can you address this concern again? Right, enhancing speed and efficiency, Mr. Wu. Thank you, Mr. Yim, for the question. I remember Mr. Yim asking this question last year, actually. And if one is already a permanent resident of Hong Kong, they can do that beforehand, as long as they will be of the age 18 by 2nd of June. We do thank Mr. Yim for your suggestion. Can you explain why so much time is needed? You said before manpower was needed, but now with the use of AI, perhaps you can shorten that time needed. Right. We need to prepare the register. It will involve much manual work because we need to deal with information collected from citizens. For example, those mailed by citizens before 2nd of June, we need to verify their residential addresses and the address proof provided, as well as other information. The provisional register will be published by 1st of August, and electors will need to take that time to check their information to see if the information, the updated information they submitted is included in the register. And we really need to reserve time for citizens to make objections or lodge claims, and then a decision will have to be reached by the adjudicator. The time is actually quite tight. We also needed some time to verify the eligibility of electors and the information of electors. Thank you. I believe we have Mr. Nicky Kwok who wants to speak. Thank you. Actually, we have in the annex, the last date here is 25th of September. The first one is 2nd of June. 4 months may seem like a long time, but then as Mr. Herman said, there is a process where the public can lodge claims and a hearing may be needed. So it may seem like a long time because it's 4 months, but we have different work to be done by departments. We do understand the members' concern. Members raise another concern about the age of or the timing and when people become 18, and we therefore focus our publicity efforts on telling people that they, as long as they become 18, on 2nd of June, they can register in advance. Thank you. Mr. Wu. Right. So as long as they will be eligible, then they can register and they should update every year. Right. I also have some questions. I appreciate the efforts of the administration mentioned in the paper. We should make better use of I Am Smart. We want to promote a smart government. We can really make good use of I Am Smart because it already has different authentication and facilitation. I also would want to say that you're not applying as much funding as other departments. You actually also have minimal manpower. Perhaps you can work with, say, care teams or other governance components in the sharing of data. That should reduce time and manpower costs. We can also refer to the immigration department's experience. They have handled significant numbers of visitors before. So we can perhaps look from their experience to see when we recognize certain information to be accurate, what departments this information can be shared to. I think this is something we can consider mid to long term. In my understanding, many members support or the organizations they serve actually take part in the work of care teams. For example, the Deputy Chairman, Mr. Lee Chen-kang. So we can really work with care teams to enhance efficiency. And we can have them verify the information and update relevant information. We have received inquiries from elderly persons. Sometimes you have very small font on documents and elderly persons can't really read those clearly, so they thought the documents weren't important. So I think you can have larger font in communication, and you can perhaps also have some drawings for ease of understanding. We can also have care teams or housing department or housing society verify relevant information or have them take follow-up action. We want people to register as voters, and in the end, we want them to vote. We do see a higher voting turnout last time. I think in the end, if you provide convenience in voting, people will have more of an incentive to register as electors. So in future, can we give priority in allocation of resources to having more polling centers? Thank you, Mr. Wu, or other officials who is going to answer the question. Thank you, Chair. The Chairman's suggestion is quite valid. Actually, we had very good collaboration with care teams. We had 30,000 new voters last year. We consider this to be a great achievement. We have also enlarged the font in communication. When we go for publicity activities, we will try to ask for information also in the form of phone number and otherwise, so that when the mail cannot reach the relevant voter, we can make sure we can reach out to citizens to provide more convenience to citizens so that they won't be put on the omission list if they do not see such communication. We will continue to enhance our work in this regard. Thank you. That's it for the discussion of this item. Is there any other business that is the fifth agenda item? If not, I will remind members the next regular meeting will be held at 2:30 p.m. on 20th of April, Monday. The administration proposes two items to be discussed: the EAC 2025 report and the construction of the Greater Bay Area. If there's no other business, meeting adjourned. Thank you.